Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another segment here on the GSMC Fantasy Sports Podcast. Before we get into said segment, I do want to remind you to consider liking, following, and subscribing to the show and the network as a whole. Also, make yourselves available to the Super Chat, Super Thanks, and Super Stickers features. They are a huge help to me, my fellow podcasters, and the network as a whole. So anything you leave, even tips and donations, are welcome as well. All help the network. All are greatly appreciated. Without further ado, let's stick in this graphic here and let's talk about the top defenses of the week. Now, again, this is another ranking that's kind of quote-unquote chalk. These are more pundits' takes than mine, so I just want to give my analysis because these are, in my humble opinion, 5 of the top defenses. Maybe they're interchangeable some weeks over others, but right now they profile as at least top 5 to 8 receivers. I mean defenses in this league. So without further ado, let's jump right into them. Starting off at number 5 here, we have the Dallas defense. I'm sorry that is the Baltimore Ravens defense and it says Dallas, but I actually do believe that this is the Baltimore Ravens defense. Sorry for the mix-up in the graphics there, but it is the Baltimore Ravens defense that I want to talk about. And they're going up against a Las Vegas Raiders team that really shouldn't be much of a problem, as much as the Chiefs were. They looked kind of stolid in that game against LA. They really didn't rely on the running game as much, and Antonio Pierce's decision-making left much to be desired. So the Baltimore Ravens should be feeling very good about this matchup. Last week against the Chiefs, they still had 1 interception. They had 2 sacks and 3 passes defended. So overall, a solid game, albeit against a very tough Super Bowl contending team in Kansas City. So this should be a bit of a respite for the Baltimore Ravens defense. Overall, I think that, as Andre says, Lamar is going to light them up. I believe that as well. I think Lamar will have a fantastic day. I think that he'll use both his legs and utilize a lot of different guys. Maybe likely continues his strong run of form there. So on the offense, as Andre also says, Jacobs was such a big loss for them. I do agree. Even though he was kind of declining there for a bit in Las Vegas, he did bring a different profile of back that I think Antonio Pierce appreciates more than a guy like White, which is why he didn't trust him in short yard situations. For example, that 4th and 1 at the 43-yard line, where you could have gone for it, could have kept yourselves in the game had you put up points on the board, but ultimately decided to punt in that situation. So maybe that level of trust comes back to bite Antonio Pierce in games that he could win, but this one should be an easy dub for the Baltimore Ravens. But coming up next on this defensive list is the Cleveland Browns defense, and I know a lot of people were kind of shocked and skeptical of what this Browns defense would profile like after that embarrassing loss to Dallas, but at the end of the day, this is still one of the best defenses. And this is a Jacksonville offense, remember, who had a prime opportunity to shut down Miami. If it weren't for that Travis Etienne fumble at the goal line, we'll be talking about Jacksonville potentially being 1-0 and potentially being very heavy favorites in this game. But if anything, this Cleveland defense should keep them in this game because that's what Miami did. Their offense struggled, albeit their offense has a lot more weapons than, say, the Browns' offense. But at the end of the day, their defense kept them in it. They made timely plays that kept them in it. And I'm not saying that Cleveland has to win this game, but their defense will perform very well. They still had 3 sacks in their game against Dallas, so for what it's worth, they still have that productivity up front. They still have guys up front like Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, and in the secondary with Martin Emerson Jr., Greg Newsome, and the like back there as well. So I think that this game will be a perfect example of Cleveland's timeliness on defense really helping them stay in this game, because I still think the offense has so many questions surrounding it, almost too many questions to answer right now. But Cleveland's defense is kind of unanswerable outside of that one blip against Dallas. So Cleveland, for now, we can see them fall out. I would be okay with that, but I still think that they're one of the creams of the crop in the NFL when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. Then at number 3, another defense that has an easier test than week 1, the Jets defense against Tennessee. Now, again, I think the Jets offense is better than, say, Cleveland's, and so that game against San Fran was an anomaly, but there were some issues that I want to see fixed, especially in terms of establishing a better running game for Breece Hall behind that offensive line, because the offensive line was stellar in pass protection. They really were able to give Aaron Rodgers time in the pocket, and that was something that I was very impressive about. So as long as the offense, corrects some of their mistakes, then they should be fine. They should stay on schedule. Whereas the defense, they're not going to play San Fran every week. It's as simple as that. And San Fran really kind of shocked them. It was a shock to their system, I think, that they were able to run Jordan Mason down their throats like that. And so I don't think it's going to be every week. The run defense certainly is a concern to me because that's supposed to be one of their big strengths. They have huge depth up front. So that was kind of concerning. But then again, San Fran has so many different ways to beat you. So I can understand when the Jets were a little bit frazzled in that moment. So against Tennessee, again, a team that let defense beat them, literally, I think that the Jets should be fine. I don't think Will Levis is going to have a good game. He threw 2 picks against Chicago, for God's sake. So this should be an easy test for the Jets to pass. And I think that this will be a nice little tune-up game before they get into more depth in their schedule. So look for the Jets to have a nice bounce-back game. I'll take them in this game as well. And I look for their defense to bounce back. Maybe get a couple takeaways as well, for that matter. Then at number 2, we have the Pittsburgh defense. Perhaps one of the more impressive ones. As Andre says, how does Shanahan keep doing it with undrafted O-linemen? I mean, it's incredible. You can really throw anyone out there. I was kind of concerned in that game when Trent Williams went down. I don't know many of the names of their backup linemen, but they held their own, man. It's insane how Shanahan can keep rotating players in and out on both sides of the football and get the most out of them. It's not just the offense, it's the defense as well, man. It's an incredible point that you're making here because Shanahan does a great job of founding the philosophy of systems work. And his system is one of the best in the NFL because they ran the ball. In this game, they could pass the ball against Minnesota even more. There's so many ways that they can beat you, and it all starts with the depth up front. They win both lines of scrimmage consistently, so that is a fantastic point. Let's get into this Pittsburgh D as well, because they're pretty damn impressive too. Against Atlanta, yes, you can point to Kirk Cousins' injuries, potentially holding him back in this game, but they did a fantastic job holding this young core to only 1 touchdown through the air. Against the Broncos as well, this should be another easy game for them. Bo Nix's inexperience will still show through. I think he will settle down eventually, but not this game, not against the Pittsburgh defense. And I think they'll be more than happy to, go man-to-man with this Denver team. I don't think anyone threatens them getting by their corners. I think the corners will lock them up. Their strength is definitely up front as well, so that the Broncos O-line has so much to worry about. So look for the Pittsburgh D to wreak havoc again. They had 2 interceptions and 2 sacks in this game and 13 fantasy points against Atlanta. So I do feel like this defense is a force to be reckoned with, and we're going to see them a lot in this rankings. I don't know if it will translate to many wins because the questions are on this offense. The questions are around whether or not Justin Fields has officially, quote-unquote, won the starting job. I think that will lead to a little bit of instability there, but as of right now, I'm comfortable with the Pittsburgh D at 2 in terms of what pundits think. I would personally put them in my top 5 right now as well, but based off of performances from last week and based off of matchups this week, I think that there's a clear number 1, and it is the Dallas defense. Now, they're not going to have as easy a task as beating a completely kind of defeated Deshaun Watson. And Derek Carr did have one of the better games of a quarterback in the NFL this past week. But I do think what I like about Dallas's defense is that it's not so star-oriented to the point where you're only worried about one guy. The depth is there. It's not just Micah Parsons. It's Odigizua. It's guys like Lawrence. It's guys like Bland on the back end. Everyone has his role. So I think the reason why a lot of people were impressed by this Cowboys defense, even though it kind of felt like the Browns gave it to them, was because of their ability to get a lot of fantasy production as well. 6 sacks, 2 interceptions, 19 points. That's basically like a wide receiver 2's numbers for you from a defense perspective. I told you guys, defense will win you games in some situations. And Dallas D certainly might have won a lot of people some games. And against New Orleans, yes, you always have to worry about the threat of the deep pass with Derek Carr and Rashid Shaheed. But I don't think that the Saints will be able to maintain this against top teams. They can maintain that strategy against an NFC South team, like they did against Carolina, but not against a vaunted team in the NFC. They're not going to immediately scare the Cowboys. That being said, this is an interesting matchup in terms of the Cowboys' corners. I think that if the Cowboys' corners win their matchups consistently, then this could be a blowout. But if not, then I think this can be a closer game than people expect. But let me know what you think in the comments, because these top 5 defenses are the cream of the crop. But coming up next, we talk about more betting odds for this weekend. My final betting preview for some of the best games of Week 2. We'll be right back to talk about them right after this quick break.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of